Look at your screen right now. Numbers are bleeding a deep relentless red. The index charts look like a jagged cliff face, and every major financial network is screaming that a catastrophic economic winter has arrived. You are probably sitting there staring at your shrinking retirement portfolio, listening to the anthem drumbeat of mass layoffs, and wondering if the axe will fall on your desk next. You watch your home equity evaporating, see your favorite stocks plummeting like stones from a bridge. You spend your nights staring at the ceiling, gripped by a paralyzing dread, feeling like your financial future is slipping through your fingers. If your answer to this is an anxious, not then I must be brutally direct with you, yet are making a mistake that guarantees you will be locked out of generational wealth. You are viewing this economic downturn through the lens of a victim. You feel the pain of a recession and equate it to an apocalypse, treating it like a fatal disease infecting the global economy. But you have forgotten a fundamental law. 如何确保这件事永远不会发生在你身上? Recession is not a systemic failure. It's a necessary biological function of the free market. For the past decade we have been collectively hallucinating. We lived in a distorted reality flooded with artificially cheap money and esoteric interest rate policies. It was an environment that subsidized incompetence, kept zombified corporations on life support, and convinced ordinary investors they were financial savants, simply because a rising tide lifts all garbage. But the era of free money is violently slamming shut. Central banks are pulling away the pung bowl. Liquidity is evaporating, and the artificial stimulus that propped up the delusions of millions, this gone, this day, brings us to the interrogation you must face right this very second. When the monetary tide goes out and then the economic purge accelerates, will your wealth be burned away with the deadwood, or have you positioned yourself to inherit the ashes? Most people will let panic hijack their rational brain. They 如何确保这件事永远不会发生在你身上? Will sell their assets at the absolute bottom, handing their wealth 确保这件事 to the calculating minority waiting on the other side of the trade. They fail to 确保这件事. Understand this contraction is the beginning of the most powerful wealth generating mechanism in modern economics, the ruthless cycle of creative destruction. To understand this cycle, you must accept the harshest truth about your current financial mindset. You are treating this recession as an economic apocalypse. Your primal brain is screaming at you to liquidate your portfolio and hoard cash under a mattress until the this storm passes. Instinctual retreat is the precise behavioral trap that guarantees your permanent wealth. By running in a way you are voluntarily locking yourself out of the greatest accumulation opportunity of this decade. During these violent contractions, the masses always divide themselves into three doomed categories of herd stupidity. First, you have the panic sellers. These individuals watch a 40% drop in the indices lose their nerve, and they liquidate their life savings at the absolute market bottom. They act out of pure terror, cementing temporary paper losses into permanent financial scars. Second, you have the delusional holders. These investors cling stubbornly to the rotting equity of over-leveraged zombie companies. They pray for government bailouts or a return to 0%, interest rates refusing to accept their obsolete businesses are already dead. Finally, you have the artificial victims bitterly on the sidelines, blaming a rigged system for their shrinking net worth, completely blind to it. The obvious wealth transfer happening right in front. You them yourself must fundamentally reprogram how you view a market crash and embrace the counterintuitive reality of creative destruction. A recession is never a crisis. It is the financial immune system kicking into overdrive. Is a biological necessity that relentlessly clears out weak inefficient capital, burns away toxic debt, and destroys the bloated corporations that only survive because borrowing money was artificially cheap. When you internalize this, you stop acting like a frightened prey animal and start thinking like an apex predator. Economic chaos is not the evaporation of wealth. It is merely the violent transfer of wealth from the emotionally undisciplined to the structurally prepared. Does not vanish. It simply moves from the weak hands of the panicked herd into the strong hands of poetry. Those who possess the ease, liquidity, and the cold days, courage to buy premium, productive assets at a 70% estimated discount. Let me tell you a story that 10 days encapsulates this fatal flaw. I knew a brilliant tech executive named Tom. He was a high IQ earner who mistook a decade-long bull market for his own genius. Tom held a portfolio of hyper-growth companies that never turned a profit. When the liquidity crisis hit, his portfolio dropped 20%. He was unfazed. But when the 也知道这件事永远不会发生在你身上 drawdown hit 40%. His rational brain short. Instead of recognizing his competitors were bleeding out, he panicked. At the exact moment he should have been aggressive, he became paralyzed by the doom cycle. He liquidated everything, locking in devastating losses just weeks before the absolute bottom. Tom was not ruined by the economy. He was annihilated because his lack of emotional discipline caused him to act like prey when he needed to be right to avoid his fate. You must view the market through the cold laws of evolutionary biology and forestry ecology. And then nature rainforests cannot survive indefinitely without over decades. Underbrush grows thick with deadwood choking out sunlight. A recession is that necessary ecological takeaway. Forest fire, flames are plunging asset prices and tightening credit. What burns away is the economic underbrush of zombie corporations and toxic debt. This destruction is not a tragedy, but the essential mechanism that allows sunlight and nutrients, which we call capital and human talent, to reach the forest floor and then nourish new. Now, lean enterprises. Now, we must translate this biological reality into a rigid playbook for asymmetric defense. When the shockwave hits the exxon, smart money does not rush blindly to catch falling knives. The primary objective is absolute survival. You must position defensively, hoarding liquidity not out of that but with the cold calculation of an ambush predator. This means liquidating debt, heavy non-productive assets before credit markets freeze. You are building a dry powder reserve strictly for aggressive deployment while the masses hemorrhage their life savings. Your job is to keep your capital intact. Wait with infinite patience for that blood in nature jump the streets moment. That is when you 和确保这件事永远不会发生在你身上。Step over the wreckage to dries to acquire monopolistic, cash-flowing assets at totally a massive systemic discount. I have spent my life watching this cycle, and it has taught me one and the wealth is not merely a layaway numbers game. It is the direct byproduct of superior character and then emotional stoicism, generational stoicism. Wealth is never forged during the euphoric peaks of a boom when then they shy. Every fool feels like he is a genius. It is exclusively harvested during the brutal depths of the boom. A bust surviving a recession is the ultimate psychological crucible. When you embrace the harsh necessity of creative destruction, you realize 细建设 financial victory is simply the reward for continuous cognitive evolution. You stop fighting the fire and start preparing the preparing the. Finally, you must undergo a complete paradigm shift. The paralyzing dread you once felt at the mention of an economic downturn must be replaced with calculated anticipation for the purge. Let the over-leveraged companies burn. Let the speculative bubbles burst. Your mandate is clear. Preserve your capital, conquer your primal instincts, and wait for 确保这件事永远不会发生在你身上。The flames to expose the gold beneath the when the evil 确保这件事永远 smoke clears and the next great wealth transfer begins. Will you be standing among the ashes of the ruined majority, or will you be